Hey guys, what's an interesting video on Wild Rift. So we're back with the latest tier list for patch 3.3c. Now honestly, the changes in all 5 roles for patch 3.3c isn't all that much. The most changes probably in the ADC role because firstly that's the role I main, and secondly a lot of my thoughts on that role in particular change. So we're going to mainly discuss the changes for all 5 of the roles, and also this is going to be out as fast as possible because on 14th of September we will be having patch 3.4, so this patch is only going to be for 2 weeks. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the Baron lane. So first up, Wukong, Garen, Renekton, all still there. Now we're going to just discuss the changes, which is Gragas moving all the way up to the S+ tier now. In patch 3.3b, Gragas got a couple of buffs on his AP ratio, as well as his healing on his passive and the AP ratio on his W and his E, and honestly that change is huge. Even though it doesn't target his Q and his R, which are, you know, 2 of his main points of damage, the buffs on Gragas have made him super duper good. Now he's good not only building full AP, but he's also good building partial tank. Like going Rod of Ages into tank is also really strong. So Gragas is basically now an all-rounder. He can be built tanky, he can be built one-shot, and he has all the utility in the world. He has the CC, he has that ultimate to, you know, either disrupt the team fight, disengage, or catch someone out. So he can do a lot of things for your team, so he's really good. Now Camille moved her down a few pegs, but I still think that she's in the S+ tier. Now the reason why that's the case is because we all know that no matter how many nerfs Camille gets, if you're a good Camille player, you can still make her work. And honestly, that E nerf in terms of cooldown when you don't hit an enemy will only really be felt by the Camille player. Like if you're fighting into the Camille player, you probably are not going to notice too much the E cooldown because you don't really know when it's up anyways. So it's probably going to be a lot hard. It's going to hurt a lot more if you are the one playing Camille. You're going to probably feel that a lot more. But if you're playing against Camille, you're probably going to still feel that she's broken. But either way, whichever side of the coin you're on, I still believe that Camille is going to be really strong. So majority of the S tier has actually remained the same. The small nerf from Jax isn't really going to affect all that much. Now Sion, I think he's actually in a pretty good spot at the moment. I don't think he's really OP, but at the same time I don't think that he's weak. He is a very tanky champion, which of course you build full tank on Sion. He's a very tanky champion, but his damage output is still pretty good. Like when you charge your Q a decent amount, you can more or less half health an ADC with 1 Q, which I've been on the receiving end of that a lot. So his damage is still pretty good. He's really tanky, and the main thing I think that makes him really good is his rotation. So generally Sion likes to go for Hullbreaker and likes to split push, but using his ultimate he can rotate to like Dragon or Baron for example, or even he can rotate for a gank on mid lane or something like that. So I actually think Sion is actually a pretty good spot at the moment. He's strong but not completely overpowered. So now looking at the rest of the tier list, Pantheon buff is pretty good for him. Probably is going to help him a lot more in the jungle. I think in the Baron lane it's pretty hard to get kills with Pantheon, but I still think Pantheon is pretty alright. That's why he's in A+. The buffs to Teemo is really not going to do anything for him in my opinion, just because of the way Teemo works as a champion. Being a lane bully, you can win lane, maybe you can get a couple of kills in lane, but really you're not really going to do all that much when it comes to when it comes to team fights, when it comes to late game. Like, of course you can spam your mushrooms everywhere. It's going to be an annoyance to the enemies, but I really think it's really hard to carry on Teemo, which is what Teemo is supposed to do, because he doesn't really provide a lot of utility, so he's kind of supposed to carry the game, but really hard for you to do that even if you get fed. Now something that I want to point out here is also Kennen. Now Kennen has been in the dumpster as of late. Now the reason why that is the case is basically because we are in an exhaust meta now, that even though they nerfed exhaust in patch 3.3b, every ADC is more or less still taking exhaust, and Kennen gets hard countered by exhaust. Like you don't even need a stasis to counter Kennen. All you need is to exhaust him and he basically does no damage. He still provides the stun, like a possible 5-man stun with his ultimate, but really it really detracts from his value because he's meant to burst you down with his ultimate, in addition to having a huge AoE ult. Like, his ult now becomes something like an Amumu ult because he really does no damage anymore. Sometimes it's even multiple exhausts per team, so Kennen really not in a good spot at the moment. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the Baron lane. Now we're going to discuss the jungle. Okay, so for the jungle, quite a number of changes as well. Now, Lee Sin, Wukong, Shyvana, Kha'Zix, Olaf, all still up there. No surprises there. And to nobody's surprise, Gragas has gone up. Now, the explanation is pretty much the same as the Baron lane. He can go tank, he can go AP, he provides a lot of utility and catch potential, etc. And his jungle clear is pretty decent as well. So he's not, amazingly quick, but he's not slow as well. He has a decent jungle clear. So just because of how strong and versatile of a champion he is, he's got to be in the S+ tier. And in the S tier, generally remains the same. Couple of people shifted spots a little bit to the left and right. For example, Pantheon, I've shifted him up a couple of spots within the S tier, and Camille, I shift her down a couple of spots, of course, because of the respective buffs and nerfs, especially because Camille does need to use her E to move around the jungle quite a bit, so not hitting enemy champions with that, of course, so that's gonna affect her map movement a little bit, but I honestly don't think it's gonna matter all that much. At the end of the day, I still think Camille's a really strong champion. And Sion. So Sion jungle is actually a thing, so I've put him in here. I know I've seen a couple of Samira jungles, but I really don't... Alright, I have her actually below in the tiers, but I really don't think she's that good. Now, I'm going to get to Samira later. Let's not jump the gun here. Let's talk about Sion first. So Sion in the jungle, the benefit of Sion jungle is the fact that you can actually stack your passive really, really quickly, especially on the Kruk camp. You can stack it real quick on the Kruk camp. And of course, taking down all those small jungle minions will stack your passive a lot more quickly. And it's the same story as the Baron lane. He's really good as a tank. He doesn't build Hullbreaker in the jungle, of course. He just goes straight into his normal tank build. But he still does all the same things as what a Baron lane Sion can do, except maybe split push a little bit worse because you don't go for Hullbreaker in the jungle. Your ganks can be good if you use your ultimate, but honestly, I think the main problem with Sion jungle is that his ganks aren't really very strong if you don't have your ultimate. Like, if you don't have ult, you're just gonna waddle your way into the lane, and everybody's gonna see you and you're gonna run away because you're really slow. So I think that to a certain extent he's a worser version of Nunu, because Nunu can snowball in with that movement speed and hit someone to engage with that, but Sion has to engage with his ultimate. So it's pretty much the same thing, but instead of using a basic ability, which is your W snowball on Nunu, you're gonna have to ult in to the lane to gank. So, and if you don't gank, you're just gonna be AFK farming the jungle, and you're not gonna be very useful to your team. But of course, you are eventually gonna be tankier than Nunu, so I guess that is a consideration. So I think for now, Sion jungle's in a pretty alright spot. So now moving on to talking about Samira jungle. Now, I have seen Samira being played in the jungle, and honestly I don't really think she's that good. But why have I put her in A+ if I don't think she's that good? Well, it's really simple. Basically, it's because Samira as a champion is pretty broken at the moment. So long as you're not playing against any point and click CC or any kind of CC that can disrupt your ult instantly. Now, example of that is going to be Xin Zhao ultimate that will instantly cancel your ult just by clicking on it, basically. Any other kind of CC that is not point and click is still playable, but if you're against like a Vayne or a Xin Zhao, it's pretty much unplayable for Samira. But if you don't have that in the enemy team, Samira is going to be completely busted, and I think she's going to work in the jungle because her clear is actually decent. Although you might be affecting your team count negatively because you are really squishy and you are playing the jungle role, so that could be a problem. Now, someone else I want to highlight is actually Rammus. Now, I find that actually Rammus might be underrated. Now, I think I said that in the past, like 2 tier lists as well, but really I feel that Rammus is really good because when you gank lanes, you just roll straight in, you taunt them, and it's really easy to just get kills. There's really not much you can do when a Rammus ganks you. He's such a good ganker. He's only brought down by 2 things. The first thing is that his jungle clear is trash. Yeah, he really can't clear the jungle very well, so you generally just spam gank, which is what you're supposed to do anyway. But the second problem is that he's team reliant, because at the end of the day, he's a tank, he's an engager, and if you get fed, you can't really carry the game because you're building full tank. You sometimes go for a wit's end, but aside from that, you're basically full tank, and you really can't do very much against the enemy team. So you gotta rely on your team to carry you when you engage or when you tank up damage for them, and that's really what pulls him down for like this solo queue tier list. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the jungle. Now we're gonna talk about the mid lane. Alright, so Kassadin, I've underrated him way too much in the patch 3.3 A tier list. I put him at the top of the S tier, but in reality he should be somewhere more like around the top of the S plus tier. Now I think that he's really strong despite the two like small nerfs he got. He's gonna scale really well. You can even build him tank, but of course most people build him AP. He's gonna be really strong when you scale into the late game, and his early game isn't really even that bad because you can reach level 5 really fast in Wild Rift and get access to your ultimate for that mobility. So Kassadin is really strong at the moment. Now I actually think that Ahri is even better than Kassadin, but I think that Ahri is actually really underrated at the moment. After her rework, I have seen her, obviously her play rate has gone up very significantly. However, I still think that she's not as popular as I expect because I don't really see that many people playing Ahri, although of course there's a lot more than what there was previously, but I actually still think Ahri is probably the best mid laner at the moment. She has like mobility, catch potential, and AoE damage with her Q as well as true damage. You know, sustain and healing on her passive. She brings so much to the table, and I just think that she's really good. Now Gragas at the bottom of the S plus tier. I think his matchups in mid lane and Baron lane are roughly similar, but I think Baron lane matchups are probably going to be a little bit better for him. But at the moment, in this current mid lane meta, his matchups aren't really that bad, because if you take a look at the people above him, a lot of champions are actually melee, so he's going to do pretty well into champions that are melee especially. So I think Gragas is still really strong. I'm not going to cover Gragas again because we talked about him twice in the jungle and in the top lane already. Veigar, I've actually moved him down. Now, I didn't move him down because of the nerf that he got. Now, that may contribute a little bit, but the main reason why I moved him down is because assassins, I wouldn't say are really strong at the moment, but whenever you play Veigar, it's really easy to counter Veigar with like a Kassadin, for example. Kassadin can counter Veigar because he can jump in and out of the cage. You can counter him with Echo, which is a really popular pick at the moment. Katarina, Zed. Zed's probably the hardest counter to Veigar because you can just shadow in and out multiple times out of the cage. So I think Veigar is a little bit too easily countered to put in the S plus tier, but I still think he's really strong. I still think his event horizon, his E, the area control you get with that is absolutely insane. And yeah, I just think that he is gonna be in the top of the S tier. And now Lucian. Lucian I actually think is really strong as a champion at the moment, which is why I put him at the top of the A plus tier. But the issue with Lucian is that he's really good at messing up your team comp, because firstly you end up having a squishy mid laner, secondly you end up having an AD mid laner. So normally in mid lane you want to have AP or like at least someone a little bit more tanky than Lucian. Now I know that like Ahri isn't really the tankiest person in the world, but the majority of the other champions are relatively tanky, and Lucian, the AD, just kind of messes up the team comp. So that's why like Lucian is not in the S or the S plus tier for now. And yeah, so now actually Lux in the B tier, I'm not quite sure where Lux stands, because actually after Lux got that buff on her W, I actually think that she's pretty strong as a champion right now. But honestly, I think that the reason why I put her so low is because there's so many better like mid lane picks than Lux. I think that Lux is really strong as a champion, but I think she's way better playing in support. That's why I put Lux a little bit lower than what some people may think that she should be. But anyways, now we're going to talk about ADCs. Okay, so of course this is the part I'm most excited to talk about, which is ADCs. I'm going to talk about nearly every ADC here because pretty much almost everybody has changed positions or something like that. So of course this is also my main role, so this is where I have the most expertise in. Now, I have really greatly underrated Lucian in the past patch. I put him at the top of the S tier, but actually he should be at the top of the S plus tier. He's pretty much the best ADC at the moment. Now, the main reason for that is because Kraken Slayer pretty much works the best on him out of pretty much any champion in the game, more or less, because he can proc it so easily. His early game is insane. Even with Kraken Slayer, his late game is pretty insane as well. Of course, not as good as some other champions like Vayne, but his late game is still pretty good. The only thing that holds him back is, of course, his lack of range, but of course that's the way his kit was built. He's a burst spellcaster style ADC who's not meant to have a lot of range. So that's the whole idea. And pretty much there's not much to say about him. He's just really OP at the moment. He does so much damage. And yeah, he's just the best. Now, Vayne is right behind him because Vayne can carry games really hard. Now, you may not be the best in the laning phase, but if you can hold out to mid and late game, you can carry games. And really, the game is never really over when you're playing Vayne, because even when your team is really behind, you always have the chance to scale up if you hang on long enough in the game. And when you reach like 4 items, 3-4 items, it's gonna be really easy to kill people. So I think that Vayne's just really good. Now, Xayah, I think really criminally underrated ADC at the moment, especially now with the GA nerf. Having that safety tool on her ultimate becomes so much more important, especially when a lot of people are not going to be building GA anymore. She does insane damage with her feathers, and she also does AoE damage because her feathers can strike through enemies, which is really underrated aspect of Xayah. But I just think Xayah is super duper strong. I've been playing a lot of Xayah, and I don't see why she's more popular, but yeah. Now, Kai'Sa barely makes it into the S plus tier in my opinion. Now ADCs in the S and S plus tier has a lot of competition because there are so many ADCs that are good at the moment. Like really, it's only like Jhin, Ashe, and Miss Fortune that aren't good at the moment. Pretty much every other ADC at the moment is good. So Kai'Sa, really strong carry potential. Again, like Vayne, scales really well into the late game, but at the same time has a pretty respectable early game mobility and shielding with her ultimate, invisibility on her E and burst damage on your Q. She brings a lot to the table for you to carry with, and I think Kai'Sa at the moment is pretty underrated as well. Like I don't see her picked very much, so I think that she's actually a little bit underrated right now as well. Now, because I didn't want to put like 7-8 champions in the S plus tier, I'm gonna have to have some sort of division between the S plus and the S tier. So for me, Caitlyn was in the S plus tier previously, but I think that personally, just my opinion, I would rather pick the other 4 in the S plus tier than Caitlyn. A little bit of personal bias because I do enjoy playing the other 4 more than I do Caitlyn, but I think that Caitlyn is still really, really strong. Of course, if you get fed in like the early game, it's pretty much over with because she is able to, just use her range and just bully everybody and anybody and everybody. So she's going to be really, really strong. Now, Samira, I kind of alluded to this when I was talking about Samira in the jungle, but I think she's absolutely busted at the moment, but I don't think she's S plus tier because she's so easily countered. Just one Vayne condemn and she does no damage. One Xinja ultimate, her ult is interrupted, she does no damage. So I really think that she's like top of S plus if you're playing into a team comp with little to no CC. Otherwise, she's like here, like in like the top part of the S tier if there's like some like CC, like let's say like there's like some CC basically. And yeah, so Tristana, I'm gonna be explaining why Tristana is S tier in a video I'm gonna be releasing really soon. But basically, it's kind of similar to Samira, where she's really, really OP. However, she gets countered pretty easily by like CC, and if you can't jump in, there are so many other better picks in ADC than Tristana. So I think that's always going to be holding her back. Now, Ezreal, same as Xayah, has the safety, has the poke, and just really good at the moment. Same with, not same, but like Varus as well, really strong, really good poke, and I moved him up to the S tier just because you guys have been seeing how many Varus videos I've been making lately. I do think that he's really strong, just that he doesn't take advantage of Stormrazor or Lethal Tempo. Now, Jinx, I've actually moved her way down, because although I still think that she's really strong, I just think that everybody else is better than her at the moment. Draven, I've also been making quite a lot of content for him lately. I think that he is really strong. If you're a good Draven player, you can always carry your Draven. And now the last couple of champions, Jhin, Ashe, MF, just bottom of the barrel compared to the rest of the ADCs, because every ADC pretty much is good at the moment. Jhin, strong early game, good damage, but doesn't really scale as well, and there are a lot more better picks compared to Jhin. Ashe, no damage, all utility. MF, really good team fight ultimate, but and really good early game, but doesn't scale very well yet again. And basically all three of these champions still have a niche that they fill. However, a lot of other champions just do better, are just better than them, basically. Long story cut short. So anyways, guys, we're finally going to talk about the supports. Okay, so for the supports, more or less the same, only a couple of supports have moved up. Now, Yuumi, Karma still rule the roost. Yuumi's couple of nerfs doesn't really matter all that much. Yuumi's still completely OP. And of course, the best engager is going to be Rakan, but followed closely behind now is Nautilus. So the couple of buffs that Nautilus got in patch 3.3b have made him actually really strong. I think that those patches have moved him up from A+ to S tier, and now I think he's probably like the second best engager after Rakan. Now somebody else that has moved up is Lux. Now Lux I actually think should be built full AP, not actually built like support, because when you build AP, the shield actually will increase based on your AP ratio. So when you have more AP, your shield is bigger, and of course with AP you can one-shot someone with a QER combo. So I think Lux is actually really strong in the support role at the moment. Now someone else that I have moved up is gonna be Leona, because I actually think that I've been playing with Leona's quite a bit, and I actually think Leona is not as bad as I thought she was. Now in terms of like engage supports, I think that Rakan, Nautilus, Alistar, Thresh, they're all way better, but Leona is still pretty alright. Like I think I see Leona as like somewhat like a worser version of Nautilus at the moment. I think Nautilus is just a stronger version of Leona right now, but Leona is still alright, still pretty good, still serviceable, does her job. And yeah, alright, now last small thing that I want to mention about supports is Gragas. So now Gragas, we all know, we've covered him in like 3 roles now. He's gotten buffed and moved up the tier list to S+ tier pretty much all across the board. But in support, he's still bad. Why is he bad? Because he doesn't get gold. So he is not able to build like tank or APs. He's just not able to get the gold to build the items that he wants. So he's just not very good in the support role unless you're playing like Fasting Senna or you're like playing with a Yasuo ADC. Aside from that, he's not really very good. So alright, with that out of the way, this is pretty much the end of the tier list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the tier list, and of course we're all going to look forward to patch 3.4 and whatever big changes they bring, and on to the next tier list in patch 3.4. So until then, thank you guys for watching the video, and goodbye.